Good morning, still morning. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Salton Sea. Everybody knows what the Salton Sea is, right?
Yes.
You've all heard about it. Has anybody actually been there?
Yes.
Right? Most of us have just smelled it, or heard about it, or seen pictures of dead fish on the newspapers, right? Well, this is what it was supposed to look like. The Salton Sea was supposed to be a resort. I wish it did look like that, but it doesn't. That's what it looks like. It looks, you know, everybody just thinks it's a dumb, nasty lake that sewage goes into, fish are dying because it's so polluted. But the fact of the matter is that the lake is dying. And if we allow for the lake to die, the valley will probably follow it right along. And not a lot of people know that. It's a big statement. So I'm going to be talking to you about that today and everything that goes along with the reasons that could happen. After speaking with Pat Cooper, who is the Senator Denise Duchesne's district field representative about the Salton Sea Restoration Project, I was compelled to tell you the truth about the Salton Sea and what's really going on up there. So let me give you a little history about the Salton Sea. This is the pictures that we're mostly familiar with the Salton Sea when we think of the Salton Sea. You get the nasty looking fish, a half-buried Winnebago, dead palm trees, and thousands upon thousands and millions of dead fish that happen every year. The fact of the matter is, it's not because the lake is polluted. It's because it's a natural process that actually happens in a lot of different lakes. It just happens that ours has more minerals than the rest. Pat Cooper actually told us a story that when she takes people out there, she'll take her coffee cup directly off her desk, grab herself a little thing of water, and sip on it in front of people and just freak them out. But it just tastes like salt water to her, she says. Wouldn't do it in a million years myself, but that's hers. So let me give you a little history, like I said. According to saltonsea.ca.gov, the website for the Salton Sea Project, in 1901, California Development Company, seeking to utilize the valley for agriculture, created some canals off of the Colorado River. You can see them, and they were being fed into the Imperial Valley. These canals, as you can see there, you can tell this is an old picture because the guy that's working on the canals is wearing a suit. Most of our field workers don't wear suits nowadays. But as things happened and rain came, the river overflowed. And it broke the levees and the dams, and the water settled into the lowest part of the basin of the valley, which they used to call the sink, the Salton Sink, not the Salton Sea, because it was the lowest portion. So it all settled there, and in their efforts to repair it and stop the waters, they actually were able to stop it with trains and huge carts of dirt and gravel and things like that. So by the time they were to stop the water, the sea was already there. They're like, okay, now we've got the sea, eventually it'll dry out, it's a really hot desert. Well, as time went on, the desert stayed around and it became a very popular place. Which brings me to current day. Currently there is no solidified restoration project for the Salton Sea, even though it is dying. Without a restoration project, the sea will die, and there will be some major issues with that. One being the human health issue that can happen if the Salton Sea were to dry up. Two is the ecological changes to our climate and our living conditions. And three is the agricultural production that can be affected. So I'm going to be talking to you about those things. According to the Pacific Institute, drastic changes will occur to the sea by 2017, which means that there will be 40% less water in the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea is actually the biggest lake in California. 40% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's quite a vast number. The water level will drop up to 20 feet, and 60% of the volume will be gone, tripling the salinity of the water, meaning that the salt content of the water will be triple as bad as it is now. And currently, it's 25% more than the oceans you can actually go to. So it's pretty bad, and it'll most likely kill all wildlife, including the fish, the tilapia that is there, and all the wild birds that actually migrate to that region. It's one of the last refuge places for birds in the flyway, because all the wetlands in California are currently being destroyed or being overgrown by homes and tract housing, so it's one of the last ones that they have. But you still see these things happen. Like I said, they're part of the nature. Brings me to my other point. According to saltandseed.ca.gov, as the Salton Sea dries up, 4 to 5 miles of the seabed or the shoreline will dry up, 4 to 5 miles in. That's exposing more than 134 square miles of lake bed. That's 5 times the size of Washington, D.C. This lake is huge. If that were to happen, it would create the same effect as Lake Owen. Lake Owen is a lake that's south of Bishop. You know, anybody know what Bishop is? Headed up towards Mammoth, out north of the Death Valley. There was a lake there called Lake Owen. Back in the day, that lake got fed, the water from that lake got fed into Los Angeles because of the overdevelopment in Los Angeles, and it actually dried up the lake fairly quickly. So what happened then is huge winds started coming through like they do coming off the mountains here, and it picked up all the sediment, dried salt, and everything that was on the lake bed, creating the most toxic air pollutants in the nation. And that's what that looks like. That's an aerial view of what can actually happen to our valley. If our lake were to dry up, those winds will be coming through, picking up the alkaline substance at the bottom of the lake bed, and creating toxic breathing air for all of us. Currently, my third thing I want to talk to you about is the restoration project. What can we do to prevent this? Well, how can we solve this problem? Because it is happening. It's happening right now. As of 2017, the amount of water that's getting to the lake is going to be cut off. So it's going to start drying up very fast. If you look here, this is one of the main plans that Pat Cooper talked to us about that is the most feasible plan to them. It shows a huge levee, or she called it a dike, right down the middle of the lake, leaving the northern portion of the lake with water, which is the deeper end. The lake kind of does a fish, like kind of a swimming pool effect. It's deep on the north end, shallow on the south end. On the south end is where all the birds migrate and they go and they nest and they do their thing, get their word on. But what they want to do is also create the dike that goes all the way around and still leaves beachfront property for all the neighboring crazy little towns that are out there. The thing is, with this picture, you're looking at it like, well, that doesn't seem like a lot. This space here is actually 2 miles from the shoreline into the dike. I mean, the Colorado River is no more than 200 yards wide at its widest point. I grew up on the Colorado River. 2 miles of that, it's actually quite a bit of water. So that is probably the best restoration project that I've seen, according to Pat Cooper, and I think we should all be very aware of what's happening to our lake and what we can do when you get legislation about it. Don't just look at it and go, oh, the lake, whatever. It's something very serious, and I think it's very important for us to take a look at that. So hope next time you get a thing in the paper or in the mail saying, vote for this proposition on water, take a serious look at it, because it could be the future of our valley. Thank you.